You had this really interesting idea coming back from the Ohio Funeral Directors Association this year about how you can think about which vendors to bring on. When you go to a show floor, you see a bunch of really cool services, lots of new interesting ideas, but you can't implement everything. How do you
Right.
pick those one or two or three things that are actually worth incorporating into your program that year?
Yeah. So I talked with a funeral home owner in Ohio who I think is a really great, smart businessman as a funeral director. And what he said is because I asked him, look, you have all these products, all these services, a million people coming out with new whatever product it is, memorial products or urns or whatever. How do you know which ones to offer and which ones not? Because you can't offer everything. That would make the family like overwhelmed,
Yeah, that
right?
creates a bad experience.
So, but he what the things he does offer to be very good experience for the family. So, he says he really looks at product market fit, right? Which is a term we hear in a lot of other businesses. I don't think we hear enough in the funeral industry, right? And fitting what families' needs are to the products and services he's offering. So, so as you kind of extrapolate that down, you're a funeral home who focuses on funerals. If you have a 60% direct cremation rate, your product market fit, you have a 40% product market fit for funerals,
Yeah.
right? And a 60% product market fit for no funerals. And so, what does that mean for what are you offering for each one? Now, does that mean that 60% necessarily don't want any type of services? Or is there different types of services that they want that maybe feel less religious or, you know,
Yeah. Did
more of
he
a
give an
hangout?
example of this?
No, but this is kind of as our conversation moved forward is what we ended up talking about.
Okay.
What is the the market in his area wanting, and then does he have the products that meet their needs and demands? Which one of them are product market fit? So if he has services that seem great, but people aren't using or aren't wanting, it's not a good product market fit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, this is really interesting because this is kind of the stuff I studied in college
Right.
was entrepreneurship and startups, and this idea of product market fit is everywhere there. And the people who kind of wrote the book on this, or one of the books on this, they start with, obviously when you're doing a startup, they start with message market fit, which
Sure.
is kind of which I don't think funeral homes have to do, but just really drilling down on this concept or this theory of product market fit. It's where when you do have that product market fit, where your product exactly matches what people want, growth feels effortless. You don't have to do a lot, and things just take off. And so, while you were saying that, I thought it's really interesting. The first piece of that, you can't go get product market fit. I mean, I guess you could just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what products work. That's one way to do it, probably the less effective way.
Right.
The better way is deeply understanding your market, and this is something that's going to be unique to every funeral home across the country. I guess competitors, if your competitor would tell you this, they probably wouldn't tell you it. That's
Right.
one way you could figure it out. I was thinking though, a great way to really deeply understand your market. Normally in startups, we go call customers and do what's called a customer discovery interview and say, hey, how do you deal with this problem? How do you think about this? You don't even talk about solutions. You just want to understand their pain.
Right.
One really interesting thing, or the person who might know this, is whoever's selling your pre-need,
Sure.
because they are having this
What things are people
conversation,
talking about
and
needing?
in these, where in the arrangement it's a little more of a high pressure situation. You're more asking people to make decisions they're already grieving,
Right.
and so there might be and they're already being presented with your product offerings. But I would imagine in that pre conversation, it's a little bit more open around what are your wishes, what kind of things do you want to see, and getting that kind of feedback. And a lot of the times, it's the things that seem to be more valuable or really matter. It's like things like the music that aren't really associated with a product we're offering,
Right.
but maybe it's hey, we have our out of the box music option or an upgrade music option.
Right.
Silly example.
Make it simple but easy.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I talked to one funeral home there that was expanding, and they looked at their current numbers. So they have this big, beautiful old funeral home, right? It's a legacy, and they have a big, beautiful chapel there. only in their market, 5 to 10% of people use that chapel. Most people hold the funerals in their churches that they go to, right? That's where they like to hold services.
Mm-hmm.
And so
are you talking about Utah?
I am not actually.
Oh, actually, that's surprising.
This is East Coast. So they are using the chapels there. So they built a second location, no chapel, and didn't have any problem. And they're saying when they do the next renovation, they might take out their current chapel and turn it into a large center for catering, for get-togethers, people who don't want a religious experience, especially for like direct cremations. But you can still gather with your family. You're not doing the whole viewing and stuff like that. But we'll cater in food, and it's just a private event for you, because they think that's going to be more of a product market fit than everything else.
Yeah.
The interesting thing here is as you look at product market fit for a funeral home, if something is under 20%, I might think about cutting it, right? If less than 20% of families ever want that, just to clean things up, I might not offer that. It's not a good fit. I want things that are above 30%. If it's above 50, 60, or 70%, that should be a hallmark of what we do. So I look at like aftercare. How many families have to close estate issues? Every single one. And I don't care if they did direct cremation or full service. Every single one has to call government agencies and call the bank and call the credit card and do all these things. And we know it because every family gets that checklist from that funeral director. Make sure you do these things.
Yeah, and we might see 5 to 10% of families, and that's probably generous, where there's only 1 or 2 things on that checklist. Like go search for unclaimed property, set up fraud protection, none of the other things apply. He was in a senior living facility for 5 years, and he was on hospice for a year.
Yeah,
we knew it was coming. Okay.
That definitely happens. But even with those families, giving them the peace of mind, because they don't know that there's nothing.
Yeah.
And giving them peace of mind that, you don't have to worry about your dad's name has been protected. We have some fraud protection, and it's all taken care of. That's huge. So I think that finding a way to do a service-based aftercare where you are taking care of those next steps is going to hit a huge part of that market. Almost everyone is going to want it, need it, or appreciate it. And so that's something I would lean into as my identity. I take care of that, especially if my competitor never does that.
Yeah, so I think this is all leveling up to designing your offering or designing what you offer. I think another interesting frame on offer design is figure out what are your low cost, high impact things that you offer,
right?
And really make sure those are in. And go through all the things you offer, and are there any high cost, low impact things? Right. And like you're saying, if those are high cost, low impact, and low usage, those are probably a for sure cut.
Yeah, absolutely. So find the things to cut, make it more simple, and then make sure you're adding things. If you have a suite of services that match what that family wants and needs, it's going to make you stand out and bring back that customer loyalty that we're looking for.
Yeah, I think this levels up to the big theme of what we talk about a bunch, which is the funeral homes that are going to be doing really well in 10, 20 years are going to figure this out,
right,
of figuring out what their market wants and creating offerings, product, services that fit those things. Because culturally, the United States is changing,
right,
and people's expectations of what they want to get out of funeral service are changing.
Right.
So making sure you're positioned to deliver on those things and not just saying, hey, we're going to keep doing things the way we've always been. We're going to act like it's 1960s. Basically, everyone's a Christian and wants a Christian funeral. That's not, right, it's not where we're at anymore. And even people who are Christians, a lot of them are much more, have a much more modern worldview about funeral service.
Yeah. I'll give you another great product market fit. We have a client up in Michigan, and they have 3 funeral homes. They're all beautiful funeral homes, and they're very close to each other because they bought a competitor, and then they bought another competitor down the road, not too far. But the one, they did a digital back wall. They realized how much do people sit on their phones and swipe and look at pictures and photos and things like that.
Like in the chapel?
And so it's in the viewing area right behind where the casket is. It's like a set of like 24 TVs.
Oh, or like LED panels or
Yeah,
something.
yeah, exactly. And that's just scrolling. So it's not like the old video that they used to have, or just like a video. It's scrolling through pictures and whatever, and it creates such an immersive experience. And they've had some AI visual effects that they say that's crazy. Everybody wants that job. Like people are delaying the funeral so they can have the viewing there.
With that, just the slideshow on that giant back
because
wall.
the other ones, they have a big TV in the room that still has a slideshow or whatever, but this becomes the focal point of it, and it's like it just creates memories, and people are like engaged by it, and they love how it feels. So for that market, they're like, this is interesting. They have 3 locations, and people are talking about it in the community. This is what I want. That was the feeling that I liked for whoever's funeral I went to. So that tells me that for that market, that's a great product market fit.
Yeah, this makes me think of, I was down in Salt Lake visiting a funeral home earlier this year, and I'm just sitting in the waiting room waiting for the director I'm meeting with to be ready. Mm-hmm. And there's, this Tongan family going in to see a viewing, and I just hear one of the women in there just weeping, and just hits you like, I think a traditional viewing is really sad. If you have something really cool like that can turn it, you're probably still crying,
sure,
but it turns it into this like sweet experience. Like, look at all those wonderful things we did together. Right. If you have the slideshow of like all the photo memories of your life, that's really cool.
It's showing the photos, right? And that's their legacy. Yeah. Right? Not just the body in the coffin.
So sorry to that funeral home if we just let the cat out of the bag on your competitive secret.
Exactly. So anyway, I've been really thinking about that. And so back to this Ohio convention, those funeral directors looking at that, like there's so many products and markets out there. There's so many services. There's so many whatever. And sometimes it might be tempting, well, maybe I'll go to the least expensive, right? Or maybe I'll do this. We just had someone who we lost a year ago, right? They went to a competitor because they were looking for an aftercare, and they said, I just need an aftercare. Just need something. And I want it to be as cheap as possible. And so they went something that looked like service-based aftercare, but it wasn't. And now he's really disappointed because he's stuck in a year contract, and he's getting a 12 to 15% use rate, right? So he's like, I'm paying for this, and I'm only getting such a small percentage using it. It now no longer becomes an asset to my funeral home.
Yeah, and it's actually not. When you do it per family, it's not cheap.
It's now more expensive than what it would be to have a full service aftercare product. And so he already called me. He's like, as soon as my contract's up, we're gonna go to like the real one. Like you want to make sure that as you're looking at all the different products and services, make sure that the use rate and what's going on, it should match what your community needs and what those families need, because you want to be known for that. You want to be like, wow, that was exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that's how you kind of make that judgment call of, I'm going to add this in or not add it in. And if they don't have a free trial, then don't use that company.
Yeah, right? I was just thinking that, where being able to test something out for a month or two, or even if you're paying for the trial, but you don't have to lock in for it. It's like, hey, I want to test this for 1 or 2 or 3 months, depending on your volume, and make sure we have a good usage rate.
Yeah.
Reasonable
enough.
It's
like someone who's pushing, like, you got to make the decision right now and sign up, and it's a year contract. Well, hang on. Serve 50 of my families and tell me, and let me ask those families if this was a good fit for them, right? If this is a good value. And whether that's like it's aftercare or maybe it's a product. Give me some samples of this product and let me see how families react to it.
Yep.
Right? Because that's going to inform you what's the best fit, and does it add value as my funeral home. Not just value to that family, but add value because I have all the things that you want in honoring your loved one.